All right, let's get right into it. In this explainer, we're going to cut straight through the hype and look at the actual hard data behind enterprise AI automation in 2026. If you've been following the industry at all, you know we're in the middle of a massive operational shift right now. I mean, we aren't just talking about basic chatbots anymore. We're talking about highly orchestrated, autonomous systems that are fundamentally rewiring how we do work. But you have to ask, are these massive investments actually paying off? Well, here's the secret. Even though everyone has access to the exact same technology, only a really tiny fraction of companies are actually seeing a real return on their investment. So today, we're diving into the data from McKinsey, MIT, and Gartner to uncover exactly what those winners are doing differently. Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. First up, the 2026 AI reality. Second, why AI pilots fail. Third, enter the AI agent. Fourth, where AI is winning. And finally, we'll wrap up with the blueprint for success.
Okay, part one, the 2026 AI reality, the boom and the bust. We really need to acknowledge the staggering scale of this market before we deliver a pretty massive reality check. Look at the sheer scale here. It's honestly incredible. We're looking at a global AI automation market size of $169.46 billion in 2026. To put that massive number into perspective for you, global AI spending is now literally larger than the entire video game and music industries combined. We are currently seeing 88% of enterprises using AI automation in at least one function today. It has totally crossed over from that early adopter experimentation phase straight into mainstream, heavily capitalized corporate infrastructure. Basically, everyone is jumping in. But, and this is a huge but, contrast that massive boom with this staggering number. 95% of generative AI pilots are completely failing to achieve a measurable P&L impact. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. According to recent MIT research, almost everybody is trying this, but almost nobody is actually moving the needle on their profit and loss statements. And the crazy thing is, it's not because the models are broken, and it's not because the pilots don't work technically. They just entirely fail to generate rapid, sustained revenue acceleration or cost reduction at a wide scale.
So that brings us to part two, why AI pilots fail, deconstructing that 95%. Why exactly are we seeing this massive failure rate when there are literally billions being invested?
Well, it comes down to these three traps. This is where most pilots just stall out completely, typically right around month 4. First up is the integration trap. Look, you can have the smartest, most advanced model in the world, but if you feed it siloed, inconsistent, or stale data, it's totally useless. A whopping 99% of projects face data quality issues, but shockingly, only 43% of leaders actually realize it's their main obstacle before they even start building. Then we hit the adoption cliff. 57% of organizations cite skill gaps. They build this brilliant tool, but the human workflows aren't redesigned to actually use it in their day-to-day. And finally, the governance gap. Imagine you deploy an autonomous agent, it makes a critical decision, and suddenly you realize, you have zero audit trail to explain why it made that decision to your compliance team.
And this really gets to the core issue driving that governance gap: maturity. Right now, only 21% of companies actually have mature AI governance frameworks in place. The technology itself is advancing at warp speed, way faster than the operational guardrails needed to manage it safely. And when you try to scale up without that governance, the organization's immune system, your legal, risk, and compliance teams, will rightfully step in and shut the whole project down.
All right, part three, enter the AI agent, the autonomous shift. If the old legacy approaches are failing, what exactly are the top 5% doing right?
They are moving entirely away from passive, scripted bots to goal-directed reasoning engines that can adapt on the fly. For decades, we all relied on Legacy RPA, Robotic Process Automation. And hey, it was great for basic data entry, but it was incredibly fragile. If a button moved half an inch on a screen, the whole script broke. Agentic AI is a totally different beast. You don't give it a script, you give it a goal. It reasons, it plans out the steps, it interacts with your external systems, and most importantly, it self-heals. If a database query fails, it doesn't just crash and burn, it figures out why and tries a completely different approach.
But here's the real secret to making this actually work in an enterprise. Instead of relying on one massive God model to do absolutely everything, which, by the way, inevitably leads to high latency and hallucinations, successful enterprises use a multi-agent system. It's essentially a highly specialized corporate team. You have a supervisor agent that breaks down the task, it hands off research to a RAG agent which goes out and retrieves the data.
The tool execution agent is the one actually interacting with your APIs and CRMs. And finally, a QA agent verifies the output against your strict corporate policies. It's literally an orchestrated assembly line of intelligence.
Moving on to Part 4, where AI is winning real-world production. We've talked a lot about the failures, so now let's look at where this multi-agent architecture is actually delivering massive wins today.
Customer service, IT, and marketing are totally leading the charge here. And why is that? Because they rely on high-volume, data-heavy workflows with highly structured feedback loops. In IT, AI is busy triaging system alerts and automating server remediation, which is dropping critical incidents by 31%. In marketing, teams are automating content generation and doing audience segmentation at scale. But the biggest winner by far, sitting at 56% adoption, is customer service.
And this brutal economic contrast shows exactly why customer service is leading the pack. A traditional human-driven customer interaction averages somewhere between $6 and $8 per ticket. An AI agent handles that exact same inquiry for 25 to 70 cents. We are talking about an 85 to 90% savings in direct costs. This is precisely why AI handles over 30% of global customer interactions today. It's just an undeniable financial imperative at this point.
The huge takeaway here is that when this is deployed correctly across these high-volume departments, the financial payoff is undeniably rapid. Companies that successfully get past the pilot phase and actually integrate these agents into their core workflows are seeing a massive 5.8x average return on investment within just 14 months. Now, yes, it requires heavy upfront work, but the unit economics at the end of the tunnel are just absolutely spectacular.
Finally, let's get into Part 5, the blueprint for success, the 5-phase roadmap. Let's explore the exact steps that top 5% of enterprises are taking to achieve those crazy returns. This roadmap visualizes a very realistic 18 to 36-month timeline. True AI transformation is not some weekend hackathon. It requires massive patience and phased capital allocation. Phase 1 is all about foundation, strategy, and crucially, data readiness audits. Phase 2 is where you deploy 2 or 3 highly focused pilots. Phase 3 is honestly the hardest part, standardizing those pilots so they can actually scale up. Phase 4 embeds the tech directly into your core business operations, and Phase 5 is your ongoing relentless optimization.
Now here's a major Phase 2 secret that most companies just get completely wrong. Look at these success rates. Purchasing an off-the-shelf solution succeeds 67% of the time, while trying to build one internally from scratch succeeds only 22% of the time. Unless that specific AI capability is your core proprietary differentiator, just buy it or partner up. It gets you to value way faster, avoids massive execution pitfalls, and instantly bridges that immediate talent gap.
The most critical make-or-break transition on this entire roadmap is moving from Phase 2 pilots to Phase 3 scaling. This is the exact chasm where that 95% fail. To cross this gap, it requires a fundamental shift in your operational model. You need dedicated platform teams, not just temporary project groups. You need an executive governance board with real teeth. You have to align on shared metrics across the business. And frankly, you have to stop building one-off solutions and start investing heavily in reusable data pipelines. It's about zero-trust governance and deep structural change, not just implementing cooler technology.
I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to reflect on your own organization's maturity as you navigate this business inflection point. The companies that are failing are taking their old, broken processes and just bolting an AI chatbot right on top of them. But the companies that are winning, they are fundamentally tearing down their workflows and rebuilding them from the ground up, assuming an intelligent, autonomous agent is sitting right at the center. So ask yourself, are you rebuilding for AI or just bolting it on? Take a really hard look at your roadmap, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.